So there you are. You've got a really nice topic that you've come up with, and now all you need to do is to plan your lesson. It might not be as easy as one might think. Lesson planning is time consuming. Okay, let me just clarify. A good lesson planning is time consuming. Okay, I'm not talking about the lack of lesson plan and just, playing by ear during the lesson, which has happened to me quite a few times. But a good lesson planning is time consuming, and it may drag at time, yes, and then you finally finish, you're really happy that you're done, and suddenly you realize that you forgot about this one or that, the other thing. So which is why I have prepared 12 tips on that you can't forget when you want to plan an effective lesson. So hi, my name is Marta and welcome to How to Teach. Lesson planning is a time-consuming process. Yes, if you want to plan a good lesson, then it takes time. And you need to remember about certain things that just need to be in your lesson plan if you want to have a nice lesson, an effective lesson, a good lesson. Today I've prepared 12 ingredients of an effective lesson plan that you can download from my website. If you go to How to Teach and you subscribe to receive a free e-course on vocabulary-based lesson planning with Google Slides, you will receive 3 videos with a bunch of materials. And in the first video, in the first email, you've got the whole list of your ingredients, basic ingredients of your lesson plan. Some of them are the basic ones, and I think they are really crucial, especially when you start your teaching career and it's all new for you. So you literally need to have everything. Some of them are the tiny ones, like in my case, I keep forgetting about timing, for instance. Yeah, so I plan a bunch of different activities, and then I realized that I could actually literally squeeze out 2 hours out of this lesson, whereas it's only a 45-minute lesson. The worst case scenario is that when you've got the other way around, right, and you've got only 45 minutes of a lesson and you've got a 2-hour lesson. So timing is really important. At my current school, every lesson needs to be prepared with the use of a PowerPoint presentation, or I use Google Slides. So I literally need to remember that each of my slides has got a timing, objectives, clear tasks, clear activities, stages. So, it's sometimes you just kind of forget about these things. So this one is really good. So go to my website, How to Teach, print this one out, and when you have to plan a lesson today, you've got your nicely done list there, and you can just check, and tick, all the boxes. So let us start and let us dive in with the first of these tips. So the first one is lesson objectives. So lesson objectives are crucial. So you can't have a good lesson if you don't know what you actually want your students want to achieve by the end of the lesson. So lesson objectives is something you need to think what you want your students to achieve by the end of the lesson. So in my current school, we need to have differentiated lesson objectives for students of different abilities. So we've got so-called a basic level, so we want students to achieve by the end of the lesson. And then we've got extended level for students, of higher ability, or in this case, of them being on a higher level of English. So the first thing is lesson objective, and it's crucial for your lesson planning. So one more time, what do you want your students to achieve by the end of the lesson? It can be 3 lesson objectives. It doesn't you don't need to have the whole list. So for instance, if you've got present perfect, what you want to do, you want students to know, to learn, to know how to use and how to make sentences with the use of present perfect. That's your main lesson objective. But then there might be some vocabulary or there might be some speaking. So you want students to develop, not practice, develop your listening skills, speaking skills, writing skills. We want them to develop. We don't want them only to practice these skills. We want to have this language development. So remember, I want students to develop their listening skills, right? I want students to learn the vocabulary connected with work, for instance. So these are the lesson objectives. Put 3, 4 at most, and you're fine, right? So the second tip is a lesson starter. A lesson starter is a short 3 to 5 minute activity at the beginning of your lesson. And you want students to get into this mode, learning mode. It can be something really short. It can be a revision from yesterday's lesson. So name 5 words connected with work, because yesterday we were doing a topic about work, for instance. Or look at the picture and answer the questions related to the picture, or describe what you can see in the picture. Or it can be name 5 things that are associated with tourism, for instance, because you're going to talk about tourism. So something that you want them to either test the knowledge, what they already know, get them ready for the lesson, revise something from yesterday, basically to get them ready for lesson starter. Lesson starter is usually just to get them ready for the lesson. So the next one is clear instructions. This one is actually really tricky, and it doesn't really matter whether you've taught for a number of years or not. I mean, it helps, but sometimes you may struggle with giving clear instructions because you're nervous. You see the class for the first time. You want to fill in the silence, so you start. You keep on talking all the time, and your instructions, instead of being very short, are really long. So instead of saying, "Can you open the book, please?" or "Open the book, please," could you or would you be so kind to open your book, please? Stand up, or "Oh, if it's not a problem, could you stand up, please?" Which one is better? Stand up, please. Thank you. Remember always to say thank you. Would you be so kind, or if you don't mind, it would be brilliant if you could stand up, please. Oh, please, we don't have to give it that. But anyway, you can see the difference. Yes? So clear instructions, especially with elementary students who don't really understand much of what you're going to tell them. So clear instructions are very important. Yes. And tip number 4. So we've got a presentation stage. So for instance, you've got listening task. You've got a massive listening task about rainforest in Brazil, and you know that there are some words which are crucial for this listening. When are you going to teach these words? Well, so this is this stage, that's the pre-presentation task. That's this stage when you can introduce these words to students. You may do it differently, but this is the easiest way to do it, right? So you basically first you introduce a few words, you do some sort of an activity, match the definitions with the meaning, for instance, or name the pictures that you can see, or match the words to the pictures. So this is done. You know that these words, which are crucial because otherwise students wouldn't be able to answer the questions from the listening. Now they know what they mean, so you can move on to, the main part of your lesson, which is a presentation stage. And the presentation stage is my tip number 5. So remember, you've got the presentation stage there. This is the main part of your lesson. Some of the lessons might not feel like there isn't really a presentation stage if these are different skills type of lessons. So you've got a bit of listening, reading, writing, but then when you come to this stage, focus, make sure that students, this is your teacher talking time. You can explain to students. Probably during your trainings, you've heard that, right? Okay, so you always need to decrease teacher talking time. Yes, you do. But during your presentation stage, this is the time when you are passing your knowledge on to your students. So you need to explain it to them. You need to introduce them. Try to keep it short, okay, and move on to activities straight away. But this is the time when you want to you want students to learn something that you're going to explain it to them, show it to them, whether this is grammar structure, listening, writing. So if it comes to writing, you've got an article. So how are they going to write an article? Well, you need to tell them, you need to explain them what are the basic ingredients. I really like the word ingredients. What are the basic ingredients of an article? This is your main presentation stage. It shouldn't last long, around 10-15 minutes at most, I would say 10 minutes at most, is enough, because then you are going to develop the knowledge of the further knowledge of a certain aspect you want them to teach through other activities, right? But this is your time here. So the next tip is follow-up activities. So you've got the main stage of the lesson, the presentation stage of the lesson, and then you've got a follow-up activity 1, 2, 3. You start with the easiest one, because in this way you scaffold scaffold all the way of the learning process, right? So you start with the easiest one, with something that they just either need to match together, for instance, or fill in the gaps. You don't want them to produce really at that stage, and then you move on to the more difficult one when they get more freedom, right? So they already know the meaning of the words, they already know what they mean, they already have seen these words in sentences. So then you may want to move to a more freedom. For instance, answer the questions with the use of these words. For instance, they've got a photo and they have to answer the questions, and they need to use these words. Yeah, so you want to have them kind of a bit of practice with these words. Yes, or fill in the gaps is also really good here, because filling the gaps is not actually that easy, and especially if you add in a correct form. So you've got different words, you've got different verbs, and then you need a correct form. This is a tricky one, so it's actually not that easy. And then the last stage, you want, the last activity could be some production type of an activity. Yeah, so you want them to produce something. So it kind of is giving them a bit by bit. Yes, more freedom a bit by bit. So the more they know, the more kind of the more freedom they have with the use of these new language structures, words, whatever you're going to teach them. Okay, good. When it comes to, for instance, skills, and you've got listening skills or reading skills. So after the main stage, so where when they've got the listening, so of course the activities are that they've got the comprehension task. So there might be multiple choice, or might be again filling in the gaps of whatever they heard during the listening. You may want to give them some topics from the listening and talk about these topics from the listening. So a lot of freedom here. Yeah, so that's a production type of an activity here. So these are all your follow-up activities. So actually I have covered scaffolding the activities in the in the follow-up activity. So just remember a tip: in order to scaffold, you're going from the easiest one to the most difficult one. Yes, from little freedom, so students don't really have much freedom, very close type of exercises. Yes, so they need to literally just match something, to a lot of freedom at the end, where they need to produce something, for instance. Now, the next tip is differentiated tasks. It may not apply to all of you, because, in language schools, they do the placement test and you put them in, certain groups, especially if you've got one-to-one online teaching. So, the level of your student. You don't just differentiate, the tasks to your students, because you want to adapt your task to a level of your student that you already know. But in my case, for instance, when I teach in international school, but this is some sort of like mainstream type of schools, you have got a group of students, and they the level of English may vary a bit. Yeah, so also when it comes to different abilities, so you will receive some SEN students, for instance, right? So with dyslexia, for instance. So you need to know, and you need to bear in mind when you create every activity. This is really important. That's one of the differences between language schools and private, I would say, teaching to mainstream schools, international schools, independent schools, teaching in these schools, right? So you need to be much more focused, because you want students to get as much as they can. But then, first of all, you don't want the higher achieving students to get bored. So you want to challenge them more. But then at the same time, you need to have the basic needs. So the next tip is, again, it's something, that it's very, very important in, again, mainstream schools. It's tasks for early finishers, but it applies to everyone. I mean, I ran a language school for a number of years, and I always had these students who were just, finishing first, and normally I would have expected an activity to last for 15 or 10 minutes, maybe not 15, you don't want the activities to be that long, but then you had, after 2-3 minutes, you've got a student done, I'm bored. Oh, especially with children, I'm bored. It's the most common one. So you need some activities for early finishers. You can even have a really nice idea is to have a board, with different envelopes on, for instance, on your board, and students can choose something what they want to do. It can be vocabulary learning. It can be something about, describe the picture. It can be some grammar activities. So they've got this choice. So you're giving them some freedom there, but then at the same time they need to do something. So it's always better to give them a bit of a choice, because they don't feel that they are forced to do something, whereas why do I have to do it? Well, he doesn't have to, or she doesn't have to, right? So they've got this choice there, but still they are doing something, they are being involved. Yes, of course, with you can add a really nice stars and smiley faces that, well done, you finished, now you can move on, or something. So anyway, this is a massive topic. I could just talk about different early finishers activities for a long time. It's the creativity here. Teachers who love decorating classrooms and everything would have a blast there. But coming back to our tips, so remember early finishers activities. Okay. The next tip is very short, a plenary. Plenary, so basically just kind of like closing up your lesson. Just name 5 things that you've learned. Name 5 words that you've learned. I don't know, you want students, it can be even on the way out, you're just standing in the door, and each student that wants to go out, they have to say something. So that's a short plenary. But for them, it's just kind of, they've got this last thought thinking, this is what I've learned today. So that's the purpose of your plenary. What they've learned today, just closing up the whole lesson. The next stage is, the next tip is timing. So as I was saying at the beginning of the video, timing is really important when you plan your lesson. Make sure to have enough for a 45-60 minute lesson, whatever lesson you teach, and then make sure to squeeze everything in, not to do too much. Yes, it always good to have plan B, like extra activities or something, but make sure that all your objectives that you set at the beginning of the lessons, they will fit into this slot that you've got with your students. So timing is really important, and especially on this free e-course when that you can download from when you subscribe in my website, then I show you how to implement a clock onto your Google Slides, because this is something what I need to do every day. So you can see how nicely you can implement everything there, and you've got this timing on your slide, so you just press this one, and students know how much time they have, because that's really important to let students know how much time they have for every activity, right? So timing is really important. So not only you need to know, but you also want your students to know how much time they have. You have 5 minutes, you have 3 minutes, you have 2 minutes, and then make sure you stop. Okay, put your pens down and stop. Well, and the last one is homework. Depending on the school policies, your own policies, because it always depends, you may want to have some homework ready or some extra tasks ready. I have some students who after the lesson literally come to me and ask me for some extra extra task for them, so they could practice the material that we've just studied during the lesson. It doesn't happen very often, let's just say, but it does happen. So just in case, always have this one. Or if you feel that you want to have some homework, you want to give them some homework, then make sure you have it done. Yes, I've recently been using, I've been trying to go really paperless due to the, kind of my school policies and the whole nature of the way I teach this year. I'm teaching this year, so I use everything on Google, and then I send it to students. So but it's entirely up to you how you want to set your homework. Just don't forget, if you feel that this lesson requires to have homework, then make sure you put 1. So these are 12 tips, 12 ingredients. Sounds quite a lot, but it's not. It's just my explanations, because I'm kind of really like to, kind of go into too much detail with that. But it's really simple. Just go through that, make sure you've got all of them, and then you're fine. And then you've got a good lesson ready and go. And you can just, start your lesson straight away. Okay, so that's all for today. So remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I mean, it's just actually, it's really nice, to know that someone actually has liked this video. And next week there's going to be the next one. And please, if you've got some questions with regard to this one, or if you've got your own checklist that you would like to share with us, and if you feel that you teach in a kind of certain, in a different way, and you would put something else and you would add something to this list, just please put that in your comments below. I mean, I think that the idea behind, how to teach is to share our ideas, collaborate with each other, I mean, showing this teacher power that we have, by supporting each other, right? So that's all for today. How to Teach is signing off, and see you next time. Bye bye.